Okay, so today we're gonna do normalization part two. So as you can see here, this is an invoice. We're gonna do normalization based on the invoice. Normalization can be based on invoice or based on reports and or documents. What is normalization? Normalization is a process where we look into the relationship among the attributes or data. And to do normalization, you have to understand the attributes, understand the data on the invoice, on the reports, on the documentation. So here we can see the invoice. There's a Vistari Jaya Hotel, the hotel name, and this is the hotel number, the invoice date, invoice number. This is the invoice, the customers, yeah, and the hotel room, the check in and the check out for the hotel, and this is the price for each of the room, the total, and then after that the total plus with the tax, we have the 583, the amount that the Mr. Abdul Razak, the customer for this Vistaria hotel, has to pay. Right, next. Um, the normalization, we start with the unnormalized form, and the normalization consists of a few process: the unnormalized form, first normal form, second normal form, and the third normal form. This is the basic one, and we're going to look into all this process. You have to know what is unnormalized form, and first normal form, second and third. Like, of course, actually there's other normalization form, but as of today, we'll just look into this basic from normalized to the third normal form. So from this invoice, we need to identify the attribute. So this is the we give the name of the relation or the table. Later we're gonna create an ERD. This is the hotel invoice. You can give any name. You can just give it as invoice or whatever it is. It must be logical, based on the attribute or data that we are going to do the normalization. So we have a hotel ID. Where do we get it? This is the from the hotel number. The hotel number is the hotel ID. So we extract out all the data or attribute from the report or the invoice into the schema or relation schema, the hotel invoice. And then the Vista Jaya Hotel is the hotel name. So it is here hotel name, and customer name and address is actually this one, right? And then the invoice ID here is this invoice ID, right? And the customer ID, you can see that the customer ID is not showing here, but the customer name, address must be identified through a primary key. That's why we put it here, customer ID, right? And the invoice date, room number, this is the room, we have room number 301 305. Check-in information, like checkout information, this one. And this is the price. The price is the price for each of the room, 250 for room 301, 300 is for 305. The total is this one, the total 550, right? This is the total, and the amount owed, right? The amount owing. So it is here. So all of the data here are put under one relation. We call it hotel invoice or just invoice, right? And we and all the attributes are for this relation, hotel invoice. As I said, relation, table, file, entity. These are all the same thing. We have different meaning, and it has the same concept. Next, so alright, so hotel ID. So this relation has repeating group because it is a normalized form and there is no primary key. You can see there is no primary key. We can identify like this one, customer ID should be primary key, invoice ID, hotel ID, but this relation is for hotel invoice. So from the unnormalized form, when there's no primary key, so there is a repeating group. So we need to change it to the first normal form. First normal form is to remove a repeating group. You need to identify the primary key. So you give hotel ID. You take hotel ID as the primary key because this is the hotel relation. So the rest of the attribute here, the rest of the attribute here depend on the primary key. So with that, we remove the repeating group. Next, and even though we have removed the repeating group, this is still not normalized because we have customer ID, we have customer name, address here. We know that customer ID belong to customer ID, customer name, customer address must belong to customer relation or customer table. Invoice must be for invoice table. Room number, price must be for the room table or room relation, right? So actually, when we look at the unnormalized form, we already know actually what are the relations or the tables that we're going to create. But for normalization, you need to follow the process from the unnormalized form to the first normal form. So we have settled the first normal form, and the second normal form is to remove partial dependencies, which is to identify non-key attribute, the non-key attribute that depends on two or more key attributes. So here what we can see is we have total, the attribute, amount owed, and invoice date. It depends on all of these, right? All of these. The primary key for invoice, we name the relation as invoice. Okay, the primary key for the invoice is actually all these three key attribute, yeah, cast ID, hotel ID, invoice ID. Combination of all these three becomes the primary key for invoice relation. So the total does not belong just customer ID. If you put it, if just assign it to customer ID, doesn't make sense because total, what I mean, what total amount, oh, what is that, right? So we need to know that this amount owed is belong to the customer and belong to which hotel and belong to which invoice number. But again, still not enough, right? We need to know like the total amount and invoice date this amount owed, for example. Um, for what are the details? So that's why we have the invoice line here, or you can give invoice line or invoice detail as the name of the relation, and therefore we look into the invoice detail. The invoice detail will have the invoice ID and room number, the check in and the check out, right? So the amount owed, the total, and it depends on we want to know what the details are. So we have the invoice line. So the check in and the check out is for which room. But again, the check in and check out does not just for the room, but who's doing the checking and check out, from which hotel, right? We need to know. So that's why we have this invoice ID. We have room number. So it's not enough just for room number. We have also invoice ID. So the primary key for invoice line here is both room number and invoice ID. This So the primary key consists of two key attribute, and this is what we call composite key. Composite key means we compose the key attributes are composed into two or more key attributes. The primary key, that is what we call composite key. So with this invoice ID, we can refer to the invoice table or invoice relation. The invoice ID is here. We can refer it to this relation, and then we can see whose customer it is and which hotel and for which amount. So it completes the whole story about the invoice, invoice and invoice line. So what we left out now is with this relation, right? With this relation that we have that we haven't settled yet, right? So hotel name, hotel hotel name, customer ID, customer name, customer address, right? So next one. Right, again, so this second normal form, invoice and invoice line, these are already normalized. And again, this hotel ID, from that first normal form, what are left now is this one. Okay, the attributes, hotel name, and from here actually we can see there's a transitive dependency. Transitive dependency is the process for the third normal form. We need to remove the transitive dependency so that we get the normalized relation in third normal form. What is this transitive dependency? It is to identify the non-key attribute that depends on a non-key attribute. As we can see, customer ID here is not underlined. This is even though it can be a primary key, but it's not a primary key for this table invoice or hotel invoice. Therefore, the hotel invoice has primary key hotel ID. Therefore, this cast name, cast address is a non-key that depend on customer ID, right? Very logic. And the price here, we know the value of this price is actually the price for room, right? For each room. So this price attribute belongs or depends on the room number. So we have this non-key price, non-key depend on room number, which is non-key, and we have this customer name, customer address, which is which are non-keys, depend on customer ID, non-key. So non-key depend on non-key attribute, meaning there is a transitive dependencies. We need to remove the transitive dependencies, then we get into the third normal form. Therefore, what it is obvious, we can see that this is hotel ID and hotel name. The hotel ID and hotel name, we can put it under hotel relation. We name it as hotel, right? The relation is hotel relation or table, yeah? Hotel. So we have hotel name, hotel ID, and then the room number and the room price is for this room relation. So you have room number and price. But again, if we just leave it as is, doesn't make sense, because room number and price for which hotel. So therefore, we add this one, right? We add this one to refer to the hotel, that this room belong to the hotel. So the hotel ID, the number of the hotel here, we can refer to that, to this hotel ID in the hotel relation, to know which hotel it is, right? So we settle that one, and then again, like this one, customer. This is all about customer, so we can put it under a customer relation here, right? And the customer ID, customer name is the attributes are under customer relation. And the whole thing here, this is already normalized in the second normal form when we discuss about second normal form to remove partial dependency just now. This is done. You have to uh, you have to list out here at the third normal form, right? The whole thing here, right? So invoice. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 relation or table, right? Here we call it as a relation. All right, and then how to draw the ERD based on this third normal form is very easy. First, you just draw the entity, the hotel, and then the room, right? And this one, customer, yeah, the customer, the invoice, this one, and the invoice line is this one. Okay, then what we can see, how to draw it is very simple. This is hotel ID, this is the primary key. Wherever there's a primary key, it will be 1. And this is hotel ID. Hotel ID here is the foreign key, so it will be many. So you can see here, this is 1, 1, and this is many. This is the Crowfoot notation, yeah. This is many. So one hotel has many rooms, so it makes sense. And then customer, like the customer, this is the primary key where you can see the customer here, the primary key, and we have here customer. Actually, yeah, we know, right? This, all of this is the PK, right? But PK, it, like I said just now, this is the composite key, but this is FK. This is also FK. Why FK? Because customer ID, of course, this is invoice, right? We know that customer ID must belong to customer. So this one is PK. So how to relate, how to draw the ARD? We can relate it from PK and FK, right? So the PK customer ID is customer here, and then we have a customer ID also here at the invoice. So we link at customer and invoice. So customer here is one because it is PK, and the invoice is custom invoice is FK here, so it is many. So you can see that everything, yeah, uh, becomes like here invoice is this one is PK, and here is become FK, right? And this is also FK. But the primary key for invoice line is the composite key, which is the invoice ID and room number. So right, so the primary key are invoice ID and room number, but they by themselves, right? The invoice ID is actually the uh, primary key for table invoice, and room number is the primary key for room. So here actually it is a foreign key, but the primary key is the composite key, combine all, right? So that's why we have here one, and this is many, and this is also one, and this is many. So that's how we how we draw it. Very simple, right? So one hotel has many room, and one room can be referred to many invoice line. Like invoice line has many invoice line for one room. Check in and check out, there will be many, right? For different date. And then invoice, one invoice we have one invoice can have many invoice line or invoice detail, and one customer has received many invoice. One hotel generate or produce many invoice. So it makes sense in that. So it's very simple. Once you already have order relation in the third normal form, you can just draw the ARD. Wherever there is a PK, there is one. Mostly it will fit, the logic is there. But sometimes it depends on the scenario. Different scenario might give different results, right? But basically, uh, when there's a foreign key and primary key, we can assume as one to many. We can look into the logic, then the logic is there, right? So as simple as that. That's how we draw the ERD from the third normal form relations. Okay.